Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name is Soleil and I garden in a Zone 5B in mid-Michigan, and today we are going to be doing all sorts of things around the garden. You guys have asked me a little bit about limbing up trees, so we're going to do a little bit of that today. I'm going to do some planting, we're going to do some editing. Gosh, I'm not even sure everything that we're going to do. I call these kind of days like kind of a garden design mishmash day, get everything done that I can. So I just kind of go about and do some of the chores that I've had kind of piling up in my mind or either on my checklist that I can get done because I have a significant period of time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the redbud tree that we have here. This one is about 4 years old now, and as it continues to grow, I'm just trying to shape it by limbing it up because I want it to be taller and create more of a dappled shade and a higher tree level so that the bottom limbs are not down too short. I want to be able to walk under it and just ensure that it's not creating a full shade but more of dapple shade for me. So let's take a look. So we have quite a few branches that are coming out on this side of the tree, and one of them right now that I feel like is starting to hang low is this one. So even though they were pointing more upright earlier this year, as the growth has continued on this tree, what happens is it grows longer and therefore it weights the branches down. So then I have to start looking at what other branches are there that I might want to take off so that we continue to get more of an upright growth until it gets high enough so that I feel like the bottom limbs are going to be, up and above the area that I want them to be. So we're probably going to come through and actually just take this branch off. But when I start this process, I usually take a few branches off just to begin to see how that, changes the growth habit of each branch. So for example, let me get my gloves on here. With this particular branch, we have several different branches that are coming out of the end. And so I'll just take one of them off and see how that does and what it does to it before I actually go about taking more off. And this one is the one right now that I feel like is really leaning down because it has so much weight on it. So we're going to go ahead and start with that one and trim that one off. Now what that's done is actually lifted this branch up, so I might not actually take that one all the way off. So we'll see how it continues to grow from here. But I do have a couple other branches that I'm looking at that I may want to take off as well, so let's look at those a little closer. So you can see the growth habit on this is, again, what I'm kind of going for. I want to make sure that I'm getting it to get up, up, up. And then I look at it from all of the different angles to see what's happening. So let's come over on this side here and see if there's anything else that I want to take off. And one of the ones that I have been watching as well is this branch over here. So I'm thinking we might take that one off and see how that goes, as well as the one that is shooting way out over here. So because this one is coming out so far, I actually think I'm going to take this entire branch off. Right down where it trees out from this section. This branch is good, it's going to help fill out this area, but I think that's going to be the right thing to do. So I'm going to start just by clipping this one off the end. And I really think that I would like things to grow in that direction still to fill out, so I'm going to clip it back a little bit further here and step back and see what that looks like. I do like that shape a little bit more. And then over here on this branch again, I'm just going to come through and take this really long one off. I think that's probably all we're going to have to do, but let me again step back and take a look. I'm also going to take this really small branch off right here, and then we have some branches that are kind of growing into each other down low, so those are going to be trimmed off as well here because they're basically just growing right into the center of the tree. There we go. And this is not necessarily the best time of year to be pruning Hisea canadensis. I just am doing this because I want to get at it and prune it before it puts on lots of new growth next spring. And it definitely is starting to set its buds for blooming next spring. I can see those setting. So you do want to, you know, just be aware of that before you do any pruning this time of year. Also, I'm not taking very much in terms of material off of the tree because you don't want to take too much of that off this time of year, or else you actually may promote a bunch of new growth, which is not great towards the end of the growing season before you get freezes. So I think that's all that I want to do today, but that kind of gives you a little bit of an example of how I prune things up. And I will probably come through next spring and then continue to clean up some of these lower branches so that as this grows up, you continue to see more of this multi-stemmed trunk, which is looking beautiful now. Well, as long as we are back here in the shade garden, I think we'll work on this giant hosta and taking that out. And I just want to point out a little bit too, you may notice that this whole area has opened up quite a bit more. My husband and I actually, before the storm, it was probably really good timing. We came out here and used the chainsaw to take out a lot of dead limbs and weight off of this shrub that has been tree formed. Basically, this arching tree, we'll call it, is actually a bush honeysuckle, and they are actually invasive, but I have done my best to turn it into something that I can appreciate and enjoy in my garden. And then at the base of it down here, we do have this hosta, which has gotten really, really large. There's probably several of them in there now that could be divided and made into smaller plants, but I don't want to have to keep on lifting it every couple of years. It's only been in place probably for 3 years, maybe even. And so it's just been a really vigorous grower and is just going to continue to get bigger. So I want to get this one out, and then I really want to plant my can-do hydrangea in this area. So let's see what we can get done. This could be really hard or it could be fairly easy. All right, let's see what we can do with this. I'm probably going to just chop some of the outer leaves off so that I can start to get in towards the root ball. And I know this looks kind of drastic and crazy, but this was a hosta that, you know, I've grown myself. I divided it off from some other plants, and this is what I have to do in order to get it out and change it into something that I do like. And I would encourage all of you to do that as well. When you're ever able to share plants that you move with other people by giving them away or whatever, that's fantastic. But whatever you decide to do with your plants is your business. I try to give away as many as I can, but I understand that sometimes there just isn't enough time to do that. So this one I probably won't give away just because I'm doing such a hack job here just to get at the roots. It definitely would be viable, but I don't really think anybody's going to want to plant this right now in their garden at this time of year. Today I am lucky enough to be wearing a brand new pair of gardening shoes that were sent out to me by Hisea. And these are very, very lightweight. And I am glad that they have the ability for me to put my custom orthotics into them, because if I can't do that, I have a really tough time because I have a lot of problems with my feet. So I just wanted to let people know a little bit about these. They do have a lifetime guarantee, 100 years, which I don't think many of us will be gardening for an entire 100 years, but that's a great guarantee. And they have sent a discount code for all of you guys, and we'll put that up on the screen for you. It's 15% off, and they have some of the cutest little designs. These are very lightweight. I don't recommend them for super heavy jobs around the garden, But certainly most of us gardeners, you know, don't need heavy duty unless we're really working on a serious project where we're digging in heavy roots or working with large trees or things you might drop on your feet. The nice thing about hosta roots is they're fairly easy to cut through. So I think as soon as I get around this entire root ball, it should be fairly easy to pull this out, even though it will be so big. The one thing I'm a little bit worried about is I did plant some tulips down in this garden bed, and I don't know if I'm going to be disturbing them or ruining them. Hopefully not too many. But I will say that the rabbits and the chipmunks and the squirrels and all the little critters have done a pretty great job of digging up most of my tulip bulbs this year, unfortunately. Now there is a stump that is back behind this hosta that is a little bit of a challenge to work around here. So I'm going to chop out some more leaves. There used to be one of these honeysuckle shrub / trees right here. And so as I'm waiting for basically the trunk to rot in place, I'm just planting the bed and planting things in front of it so that I can kind of cover it up. And you probably wouldn't even know that there was quite as big of a stump here as there is. So now I'm just going to dig the hole a little bit deeper. This can-do hydrangea will fill up this space, but the thing about these hydrangeas is I can simply cut a branch off instead of, you know, having to cut a whole bunch of leaves off. So just kind of limbing up the hydrangea in a way that it won't overtake the path. And again, I'm going to plant just as close as I possibly can to this tree stump so we have as much room as possible. The other nice thing about these little shoes is that not only are they lightweight, but they're easy to get on, and they're great in the morning when you're walking around your garden and there's dew on the grass, so you don't get your feet all wet. All right, so this is the can-do hydrangea, which is a variety by Proven Winners. It's in the Let's Dance series. It has some beautiful flowers on it. In my case, they turn more of a pink than a blue because I do not have super acidic soil. And this is a mix between a large leaf hydrangea or Hydrangea macrophylla and a Hydrangea serrata, which is a mountain hydrangea. So it has a bit more hardiness. And for those of you who follow me, you know that I have another one of these in my garden, and it's in more of full sun than this. So that's part of the reason why I want to plant this here, is just to kind of see how this does, because it's more of a dappled shade area. Oops, I see part of a hosta right here, so I want to get that out, because otherwise it will grow back from a very small root. So a lot of times I try to plant hydrangeas slightly above the ground because of my clay soil, but my soil is better back here. And in addition to that, I found that this type of hydrangea does like a lot of water. There's plenty of drainage and organic matter in this soil, so I'm not worried about it getting kind of waterlogged over time if I plant it at soil level. I'm actually seeing some of the tulip bulbs right now up near the top. I'm going to throw some of this mulch in here off of the pathway. Definitely quite a bit of mulch got moved around during the storm here. So we have a little bit of a pile up right in front of this garden bed anyways. And even though I mulch in spring, really it is ideal to put mulch out in the fall, especially after you have planted something new. I'm definitely going to have to go pick some up. Just going to firm the soil around it now with my foot. This area is definitely going to look a little bit empty. But the other nice thing about this is if I do have spring plant bulbs in this garden bed, is we'll actually be able to see them, and then this hydrangea should fill in around them as the foliage begins to look bad or yellow. And I'd like to put some daffodils in here instead of the tulips because of the critter problem that we have. Whenever I see an issue with the rocks, I try to just readjust them. I've also had a problem with the moles digging underneath this garden bed. At least I think it's moles. Could be chipmunks. Well, hopefully you can kind of see what my vision is here in terms of having a little bit more planting space between the plant and the rocks that are part of the border around it. And I think that the color will also be nice in this part of the garden. It will give a little bit more space to the Brunnera that's behind it, this giant Queen of Hearts Brunnera. And hopefully it's just going to thrive here and be able to provide lots of blooms, but not so much wilt because it won't get that late afternoon sun that I have on the other one. So it'll be fun to compare the growth and the health of the two plants over time to see what kind of conditions they prefer in my garden. And you can see just how big the stump is that was back behind it. All right, well, now that we've got this one cleaned up, I have another Let's Dance Can Do that I want to plant in the front garden. So let's get after that. All right, well, here we are in the front garden bed, and I'm going to be taking out this birch leaf spirea here because it hasn't thrived. I'm not sure if it needs more sunshine or what. It should do okay in shade or part shade, which is what it gets, but it's just not thriving for whatever reason. It definitely didn't take the drought that well. It seemed to be at first, but now you can see lots of the little dead brown branches on it, and I've had to kind of come through and trim those out. So I'm just going to take it out, and we're going to use this other Let's Dance Can Do hydrangea. And again, this one is going to get 3 to 4 feet tall and then 3 feet wide. So it might not get that full size in my garden. We have yet to find out, but it's definitely going to be this beautiful pink color. So we're going to dig out the spirea. I am also going to be digging out the hellebore possibly, and moving the stepping stone that is right in here as well, which is between those. So a lot just kind of depends on where I get it positioned, but I do think I'm going to be pulling that hellebore and then putting it in place of either that hosta or this hosta. I am kind of leaning towards this hosta over here because of the fact that it's near the maple tree, and so it doesn't get quite as much water, and hellebores tend to do really well in dry shade. So that's the plan. So let's see if we can get it done. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to pull the stepping stone. This will help with opening up the planting area so I can see things more clearly. And it will become even more clear, I think, after I dig out the spirea. But sometimes you have to do things in a certain order of operations, and I think that this hellebore is going to be easier to get out first. So that means I actually have to kind of reverse order my plan, right? So because I want to move this hellebore, I really need to decide where it's going to go first and dig that plant, then move the hellebore to that spot, then dig up the spirea, and then plant the hydrangea. So I know it sounds like a lot, but it really is a great way to do things. I've used this method many times over the years, and I'm sure that many people who are watching this video can relate and will share their stories of how it's worked for them as well. So I am going to plant this hellebore over here where this blue hosta is. And no, I don't have a plan for this blue hosta as of right this second. But before I get rid of it or anything like that or give it away, I'm definitely gonna give it some thought. Ooh, I think there's a strong root in here. Either that or mulch is in the way. Yep, just some mulch in the way. I'm definitely going to try to leave as much of the native soil as I can here as I pull out this hosta. One of the things that's interesting in this garden bed is that things tend to grow between the roots of the maple tree, and I try not to do anything to harm the maple tree roots when I'm pulling out other plants. So the less digging that I can do in this garden bed, sometimes the better. I'm also trying right now to kind of avoid as much as possible stepping on the soil so that I can avoid compacting it, because it is moist from all of the rain that we've had, and you can really ruin your soil structure by walking on it too much when it's wet. All right, there we go. Yes, I definitely see lots of maple tree roots happening in here. So we'll have to create enough of a space for these hellebore roots to get in here. This hellebore was a self-seeder, so it was a volunteer in my garden. So hopefully it'll do well in its new space when I decide where it plants instead of it seeding itself. I am a little worried about the size of that root ball. It looks rather large. Hellebores do have a pretty good root system, which is what makes them so drought tolerant and so great to have in, areas where you might have dry shade. All right, now this is probably going to look a little bit strange the way that I'm planting it at first because it has definitely been growing towards the light. So that should shift as it adjusts to this spot. With gardening, there's no guarantees though, so we'll see. Time will tell. All right, now we can get that spirea out. You can see the spirea is kind of taking over that hellebore that's in front of it as well. So that's another reason why I'm trying to move things around in this garden bed. Sometimes there's just areas in your garden that need a little work. Again, I'm just really trying to shake off the root ball here. Leave as much of this good organic matter that I can in place so we don't lose too much. It's nice to see the soil here though, looks pretty good. It's definitely had plenty of roots. There's not anything wrong with the roots. I just think it must not have been the best spot for this plant. And one thing I am hoping is that you start to kind of avoid seeing this water pipe that's over here. So I do think that I'm going to plant pretty much in about the same spot as I had this the spirea planted. The interesting thing about this garden, however, is that there are lots of little river stones in it. The people who lived here before me, I tried to pull as many out as I could, but they had landscape barrier. I mean, this was 16 years ago, right? Or how long ago did I move in? 20 years ago almost. And so, unfortunately, I still run into these rocks, and they're still all throughout the garden beds here. But I did get all of that landscape fabric out, which is such a pain. All right, well, it looks like now that we've rearranged this, that I actually have room to put that blue hosta back in. I'm probably gonna pull off the little babies, but let's put the big guy in here to help fill up this space. Oops, there's those rocks again. All right, I took the little babies off. We have just the biggest one here. Whoops, one little one. And I think this will do better in this spot than the hellebore did. I could be totally wrong though, so again, time will tell. We'll keep our eyes on these and see what happens. And in case you're wondering, I am going to water these in as soon as we're done with this video, as well as the hydrangea in the way back. All right, let's take a look and see how this all turned out. Ooh, okay, I like this a lot better. I like the spacing better. I know it's gonna be a challenge for me in the spring when I see, you know, the hydrangea and the space where the hydrangea is until it comes up. But yeah, I think that looks a whole lot better, don't you guys? Everything seems like it has its space, and I like the flow again better, and getting that spirea out that just looks kind of dead was great. I like the bold leaf textures as well together. It'll be nice to have some more flowers as well. Well, thanks so much for joining me today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, watching me kind of work around in the garden and make some changes. Looking forward to seeing them growing on, and I'd love to hear about some of the projects you're ready to work on this fall. Please share in the comments, and don't forget there's a 15% off code if you want to use it on some new Hisea shoes. All right, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye!